Poeltl Power, Jakob Poeltl, Hakeem Olajuwon, White Chamberlain. Jakob Poeltl has signed an extension.
You are Locked On Raptors, your daily Toronto Raptors podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
It's your favorite part of the day. Thanks for making Locked On Raptors your first listen every day. I'm Vivek Jacob. I've been covering the Toronto Raptors for 8 seasons across several outlets. You can follow Locked On Raptors on X, Instagram, and YouTube. And be sure to check out the Locked On Raptors Discord, where you can talk all things basketball, but especially the Raptors. It is Wednesday, July 2nd, and I am joined by probably the least surprising man to make an appearance here, because he's Mr. Everything Everywhere all at once. Go to Raptors Republic, he's there. Listen to the Athletic Daily, it's him. Bleacher Report, oh look, it's him again. Want to watch a 9:05 game or the CBL? It's S on the sidelines.
Yeah.
Turn on your TV, he's in a commercial. Guess what? He's also my teammate at Sportscasting and Basketball Insiders.
Yes.
It is Esfandiar Baraheni. Thank you for joining me, S.
What's going on? I actually do like the moniker Everything Everywhere All at Once. It's one of my favorite movies. I love it. Awesome. Yeah. Appreciate you. Thank you for having me on. I'm excited to talk about Jakob Poeltl. Let's do it.
Yeah, man. So obviously we'll get into Sandro Mamukelashvili a bit later, but off the top, Jakob Poeltl, 4-year, $104 million extension. As far as the specifics are concerned, he's technically opted into the $19.5 million that was in place for 26-27. And then there's 3 years tacked on top of that at $85.5 million. So, and then the final year also is partially guaranteed. So, I think all in all, this is a good bit of business for the Raptors. Technically, say, for example, if he were to just wait it out, opt out of that 19.5 for 26-27, he's looking at an extension starting at $27 million. Mm-hmm. So there's a big chunk of savings in that 26-27 season. So I think you got to look at Jakob and be like, man, this is the ultimate company man. It sits out, the end of last season, not knowing what's going to happen with his contract. Obviously, there would have been some kind of agreement that, hey, man, we'll take care of you. He's taking this partial guarantee for the final season. He's taking the discount in 26-27. What more can you ask for?
Yeah, he is really, company man is a great way to describe him because he is very, very bought into what this Raptors team wants to do for the next couple of seasons. To your point about the opt-in instead of opting out, there's been reports that the NBA, the salary cap is only going to be going up 7% for the 2026-2027 season. And that's also massive because it gives the Raptors a little bit of flexibility, especially the fact that, Quickly's contract and Barnes's contract, those Quickly's is a flat contract, but Barnes's contract would be escalating in a way that kind of outpaces the cap, if that's the case, if the 7% reported is actually true. So Yak has helped in that regard. And honestly, the $5 million guaranteed that was reported by Jake Fisher in the final year of his contract it actually makes this contract even more sweet from the Raptors' perspective because they can look at the next 4 years as a sort of window with Jakob. And depending on how that final year guarantees or parts of that final year guarantee, it could unlock some things flexibility wise for them moving forward, even past what Jakob wants to do with the team. So I'm a fan of the contract. I think it's feasible. I know people will bring up the fact that the Raptors are very expensive now, but they were expensive before. And Jakob is making exactly what he would have made, before this contract extension, and he's making it for the next 2 years. So I think it's a fair contract. If you look at the rest of the starting centers in the league, most of them are making around $27-28 million, especially the ones that have recently inked contracts. The only one is Ivica Zubac, which basically is like a steal at this point. If you go and look at his contract, because he signed it before this boom of the salary cap, he's making like $20 million, and he's, was arguably an all NBA player last year. So, I think it's a fine contract for the most part. It basically at this point, the Raptors have to be good, right? The roster, with how expensive it is, you are leaning into this playoff window, this competitive window that they have to have in the next couple of years. And Jakob is going to be a big part of that. So good contract. Makes sense.
Yeah, let's get into Yak the player, coming off a career best season, 14.5 points, 9.6 rebounds, 1.2 steals, 1.2 blocks, shoots 62.7% from the field, and a career best 67.4% at the free throw line.
Yeah. Yes.
Obviously, he had that huge stretch where he's getting the nicknames and he's getting a lot of love. Obviously, the Raptors were very shorthanded during that stretch, which helped contribute to that. And I think with Yak, he's someone that I don't believe values his own scoring enough. And I think for that stretch, it was like, okay, we need this, so I'm going to do it. And I think there's going to be, especially, you know, when he's involved in these actions with Quickly and Ingram to come and Scotty, he's got to, you know, look at the basket more. As good as his playmaking is, as good as his passing is, that stretch should inform him, or should have informed him already, on, you know, the value he brings with his own offense. Obviously, on the defensive side of the ball, he's amazing, and that's why he's been such an impact player for Toronto. That's why he's going to be such a key factor in the Raptors making the postseason moving forward. And that's probably a big factor in why the Raptors said, hey, we're not willing to include this guy in a deal for Kevin Durant.
Yeah. I mean, look, the other part of the whole Kevin Durant equation is like, where would they have found a starting center, you know? And that would require sending out even more pick capitals, or more contracts to go out and get whatever center it is. I saw conversations about, oh, they can reroute, you know, someone to go get Walker Kessler or go get Mark Williams or something along the lines of that. Well, those guys, they're going to go for a first round pick. They're going to go for salary attached. And so you're like gutting more of your team to go out and find a solution at center if you trade for Kevin Durant. And so it's more than just they didn't want to include him for I've seen it reported that way, and I'm like, come on, man, this is not that's not the way to have the conversation.
Yeah.
But to your point about Yak and offensively being aggressive, I mean, I think always, and we saw this with Marc Gasol a little bit too, where it's like when your center is aggressive, when your center is looking to score, it just applies much more pressure to the defense and keeps them honest, right? In the bubble, I think you can remember Marc Gasol and like not shooting it from above the break, and it was like, oh God, this is cratering their offensive potential. With Jakob, it's similar in the sense that like if he's looking at the basket, if in that short roll area, he's looking for his little push shot that he has. If he's dunking, because I know that's a big thing for Darko Rajakovic, he's requested Jakob dunk more often. If he's being more physically aggressive at the basket, it'll help the Raptors offensively. Also, I think a part of him being more confident offensively is trusting in that free throw percentage. So the fact that he's knocking down free throws more often makes him feel like, oh, well, if I get fouled here, I'm confident I can knock down at least one of these free throw shots. So that's part of the equation of getting him more offensively adept consistently. But yeah, he's going to be a huge part of their offense just because of the Raptors, the way they want to play.
Yeah, no question. And I really like the point you made about the free throws. I think that's a big part of it. When you feel like anything inside, hey, like they might just hack me, and so I'm better off kicking it out. I'm better off finding a cutting teammate, whatever it be, because I have the skill to do that. You lean that way. And I think now, you know, having that confidence going to the free throw line, hopefully he can be even better than 67% next season. And hopefully, you know, RJ Barrett takes it as a bit of an insult.
Oh my God.
Shooting better at the free throw line than me, and I got to up my game.
That is one of the most bewildering things. Like he was basically like a 78% free throw shooter in New York. As soon as he got to Toronto, he ended up being like a sick, I don't know what he ended up finishing with, but it was probably like 60%, something along the lines of that. It was bad. Which is
Osmos give it, then Osmos take it away.
Yeah, exactly. That must be that secret sauce. That's it.
Yeah. All right. I think that just about wraps it for Yak. I don't know if there's any other aspects of him that you wanted to touch on.
Yeah, I guess I'll just say, like, I think, you know, people will obviously look at the fact that their starting five is linked on to it's 80% of the salary cap or whatever it was. I saw that reported, yesterday too. I think generally it just ends up being that the players have to be good. It's such a cop out answer, but like Scotty Barnes has to perform to his contract level, and Emmanuel Quickly has to perform or outperform his contract level. Jakob Poeltl now has to perform to his contract level. Brandon Ingram, who hasn't played a game for the Toronto Raptors yet, has to perform to his contract level. It's as simple as they have built a roster to be better than the 30 wins that they had last year. And honestly, probably if it wasn't for tanking and injuries, they're probably better than 30 wins last year.
Yeah.
They're expecting to be at least competitive next season with this expensive roster. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, this is a talent business, and you need your best players to be your best players.
Yeah.
I have the Raptors marked down currently as around a 45 win team. I think the minimum expectation is being a 500 team. And I think, 45 wins in an East that looks fairly weak, I think should be pretty manageable. Now, obviously, we haven't seen a game of Brandon Ingram with these guys, and so we'll have to see how things mesh and all of that. And maybe just quickly, Brandon Ingram and Yak together. How do you see that playing out?
So Yak is obviously an incredible screener, and that's why his connection with IQ is good, because IQ has a little bit slower of a release on his 3-point shot. So it gives him a little bit of daylight. I think the same thing applies to BI in the sense that BI has to load up a little bit more from 3 than he does with his mid-range jumper. And so I think he'll be more willing to take pull-up threes compared to the pull-up mid-range shots. Also, I'm thinking of like snug pick and rolls between him and Jakob Poeltl, where the screen is actually set maybe at the free throw line instead of above the break, and it allows BI to get downhill, knock down that little mid-range jump shot that he likes. So I see the vision. Kind of reminds me of Brandon Ingram has played with a couple of good screen setters. The main guy I think of is Steven Adams, and BI had one of his best seasons of his career when he played with Steven Adams, just because Adams is one of the strongest dudes in the NBA, lays guys out on screens, gives his ball handlers such an advantage. And I think Jakob can do some of the same. So it should help BI a lot. Also, I don't know how you feel about this, but I think BI is a pretty underrated playmaker. And so there will be connections. There will be moments where he can kick it to Yak, roll into the basket, whatever, or find a shooter, skip pass. There's just going to be a lot of opportunities for BI to make plays with the ball in his hands.
Yeah, no, I do think that's one aspect that Toronto should come to appreciate about Brandon Ingram during his time here, and especially in Darko's offense. I think he's going to have plenty of opportunities to make his teammates better.
Yeah.
The point about Steven Adams is a good one, and let's face it, Jakob Poeltl, in terms of offensive variety, he's a lot more capable than Steven Adams.
Absolutely.
And so I think that is going to add another wrinkle. Brandon Ingram has already spoken about his excitement to play with Jakob Poeltl, and I think he has craved playing with a big man like Jak, and probably, as you mentioned, having as good a season as he had with Steven Adams around. He's probably like, hey man, I think this is a pretty good thing for me.
Yeah. It's like, okay, I can maybe make more money here. If like my efficiency might skyrocket in Toronto because of the way that I can get to the basket. Yeah, absolutely.
Coming up on the other side, we will get to Sandro Mamukelashvili. Ever wish managing your money felt easier? With Monarch Money, it can. Whether you're growing your savings or planning a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO, gives you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money is more than a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So, in addition to managing your money, you're also building wealth. Having all my accounts in one app has been a game changer and is just so much easier to figure out exactly what I'm doing with all of my money in one place. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNBA for half off your first year. And we are back at it, ready to talk some Sandro Mamukelashvili. He has signed a 2-year veterans minimum contract. The second year is a player option. I probably didn't need to tell you that. It's what the Raptors love to do.
It's what every team likes to do. If you look at free agency
Pretty
right
much.
now, they are tossing out those player options. It's incredible to see.
Yeah. So I think, in terms of the options, as far as getting a big man in, we're concerned. You're looking at, I think, primarily the Raptors know that they want to look to Scotty or CMB or Mobo for those 5 minutes that Yak isn't on the court.
Mm-hmm.
And so just to have a different option, there's someone in Sandro who can be a stretch big. Now, you go to a Basketball Reference, they say he's 6'11". You go to ESPN, they say he's 6'9". You go somewhere else, they say he's 6'10".
They're lying to us.
What we do know is that he can shoot the ball, and he does have quite a bit of offensive talent. You broke it down over at Raptors Republic. Make sure everyone go check out that video when you get the chance. Tell us what you've seen.
Yeah, man. Sandro is obviously a very talented shooter at his position. I would probably peg him more as like a small ball 5 type of option, even though, 6'11" or 6'9" or 6'10", whatever. To me, if Raptors fans want a clear picture of what Sandro can do, it's like, imagine what Chris Boucher at the 5 is, in the sense that, like, he's not going to be a physical presence. Obviously, Boucher has much more of a defensive acumen, long arms who can block shots, be like a weak side rim protector and rover for you. That aspect Sandro does not have. But I think offensively, he provides a similar punch in the sense that he can stretch the floor. He can give them a look with basically 5-out offense, where he shot, I believe, 37% from 3 last season. He knocked down 37% of his catch and shoot looks as well, which was really big. A lot of those were guarded, which is impressive. The fact that he can knock it down even if there's a defender draped all over him, that's impressive to me generally. The Spurs, look, this is a guy who averaged 11 minutes a game, so it's not like he got tons of opportunity or tons of run. But when he got opportunity, the Spurs would run him in these stack pick and roll actions or Spain pick and roll actions where he would be the guy popping out. And defenses are forced to pay attention to that. I think that makes the Raptors wholly unique, because you think of what they like to do with Emmanuel Quickly in these drag screen scenarios where they'll have one guy pop out. Typically, it's either Grady Dick or Jakob Poeltl, but now you can do it with double bigs, right? With Sandro and Scotty, or you can have Sandro and Yak, and one guy roll to the basket and one guy pop out. And I think that's just a little bit more lineup flexibility to what they can do. I mentioned it on there, but like, obviously he's the guy who 15th spot on the roster. Is he 15th guy on the bench? I don't necessarily think so. I think he has a chance to crack the rotation. But it all comes down to how defensively attentive he can be. How can they fit him into their rotation because of some of the defensive issues that he has? He falls asleep a little bit on rotations, not necessarily the greatest rim protector or shot blocker. They will have to pair him with a Scotty Barnes or maybe a Colin Murray Boyles or Jonathan Mobo. But I think the Raptors are uniquely capable to pair him with a guy who's a good defensive rim protector in those guys, plus Jakob Poeltl. So some flexibility, excited because I think he actually has more than meets the eye. And if given opportunity, there's a chance that he can really blossom in Toronto. That said, like, there's a reason he went for the minimum here. There's a reason that he, is 2-year contract versus like actually signing for a real money. But there's opportunity for him to outpace that contract, which is good for the Raptors' sake.
Yeah, no question about that. I think as far as the Raptors options are concerned, they probably feel like, hey, Mamu isn't someone that we want to put on 5s, but we believe that we can put Scotty and CMB and Mobo on those guys and hide Mamu a bit defensively. And when you look at the bench options, you trust in Jamal Shed defensively, you trust in Jakob Poeltl defensively, you trust in Ochai Agbaji defensively. So if that's the one guy you have to hide and protect when you go to those lineups, then I think it's sustainable, at least, for a bench stretch of a few minutes. And And then offensively, it is about opening up the floor, right? And if you're going to have Scotty, CMB, Mobo at the 5, you want a guy at the 4 who can stretch it out a little bit. And that's what he brings to the table. And, he can attack a closeout. He's got some decent finishing once he gets to the basket. And so
Yeah.
I think those are, it's a good option for the Raptors to have at the end of their bench.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you can't be asking too much out of where the Raptors were at flexibility wise or anything like that. To your point, like, if you remember last year, there was a reason the Raptors were rolling when Chris Boucher was cooking in January, when Kelly Olynyk was part of their lineup in January, because that like floor spacing 5 really enabled them to maximize some of their lineup flexibility, especially with Scotty Barnes. And so I think Mamu can serve in a similar fashion for this Raptors team. The other side of it is, like you said, he can put the ball down on the floor. He's sort of, I believe he played point guard in college. And so his ability to like catch and go, grab a live rebound and kind of dart will help in transition. Kind of reminds you of like what Scotty Barnes and Mobo and those guys typically do. RJ Barrett does the same thing. So I think Mamu can kind of fit into what the Raptors want to do in transition. And yeah, I'm intrigued by him being able to put the ball on the floor, make plays. This is obviously a Darko Rajakovic type of offense, and Mamu fits the description for the type of big that he wants. I think that's the difference between him and Chris Boucher, which makes him a little bit more Kelly Olynyk-y, where, in dribble handoff scenarios, he actually has a feel for the game, can make plays, can find cutters. And that's kind of the difference here between what Boucher provides and what Mamu does.
Yeah, and I think to finish off right there, Chris Boucher, shouts to the man.
Shout outs to the man. Yeah.
Pretty much the end of a really fun tenure in Toronto. And, let's face it, right now, he's probably the best unrestricted power forward free agent available. That's remaining. Right.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. I mean, I'm interested to see what team goes out and grabs him. I think he could fit for a lot of playoff teams. I know Denver has been interested. I think he would be perfect. It would be also funny to have JV and Chris Boucher on that team. It would be like Raptors West. I think it would be great for him to go on a playoff team. I think like Atlanta would make sense for him too. The Hawks and their system, that would be intriguing.
Well, remember the Knicks had interest in him too.
True.
Right.
Yeah. So, that makes sense. Yeah. I wonder if like the Yabusele signing ended up changing that for them, but it could still work, truthfully. Even the Lakers, honestly, maybe Luka and Chris Boucher. Why not? Let's get weird, man. But Chris is definitely a fan favorite and one of my favorite players to have covered for this Raptors team, just because he's like an enigma in the way that he plays and how crazy some of the games, he had was. Think back to the crazy comeback versus the Mavericks with him and Kyle leading the way. There was another comeback. I can't remember who it was against, but he had a crazy moment for them too. Maybe you'll remember it and I won't, but
so there was the Dallas comeback. They had the big Indiana comeback.
The Indiana comeback. That's the one. Yeah.
And then that was the one where like Boucher had the nice stretch and then Serge came back in.
Yes.
And then Serge hit the big triple.
Yes. Yeah.
What a season.
What a season, man. What a season. Hopefully the Raptors can return to that level eventually, but yeah.
Yeah, looking at the Raptors, we will get into that next. Pelly says there's a lot of stability right now, but is there really? And we are back at it, ready to wrap up. And I wanted to touch on, Keith Pelly when he spoke to the media to announce the dismissal of Masai Ujiri. He said that it was the right time to do it because of the stability that the organization had currently. And to me, that's very much a surface level statement. Because you can come out and you can say, oh, look, Emmanuel Quickley, RJ Barrett, Scotty Barnes, Jakob Poeltl, Brandon Ingram, they're all committed to extensions. They're all under contract for at least the next couple of seasons. There's nothing to worry about. But then you start to dig a little deeper. And we know that RJ Barrett and Emmanuel Quickley have been in trade discussions as recently as last week.
Yeah.
We know that, hey, from an on-court perspective, we still don't know what this group looks like. Even without Brandon Ingram, we have a very small sample of the BBQ lineup.
Yep.
And so it's not a situation where we're saying, oh, we know exactly what Kyle and DeMar are about. We don't know what this group is capable of. So you have Darko Rajakovic, who I think deserves a lot of credit for the development we've seen to this point. But this is going to be his first season with real expectations when it comes to winning. And so we don't know what he's capable of with those expectations.
Yeah.
Beyond that, I think about Scotty Barnes having a great relationship with Masai Ujiri. How does he feel about what's just transpired here? And, you go down the line to Bobby Webster. And Michael Grange of Sportsnet reported that, on the surface, it's like, oh, we got Bobby to an extension. And then you do a bit of digging, and Michael Grange is able to report that the extension is through to the 26-27 season. So technically, just a year tacked on to what he originally had. And I would imagine the same has been done with Dan Tolzman.
Yeah.
So you take all that, it's not feeling very stable.
Yeah, it's not feeling very stable. And even if it was surface level stable, taking away the president of basketball operations, longtime president of basketball operations, can have a destabilizing effect because now there's, everything kind of gets put into questions, whether it's signing a player, whether it's a trade opportunity that comes up in the front office. There's no real chain of command here. Who are they answering to? Who are they sending out these things to get approved to, right? Is it just a direct line to Keith Pelly's office? Like what is the process there for them to do things the rest of the summer and moving forward? As far as the stability on the roster, I think they are locked in terms of what this team is currently. And I think part of that is probably the inability to move these contracts moving forward. I was talking to Samson about this yesterday, and we were kind of like, well, there's no surplus value contract that the Raptors have, right? It's either they are underperforming their contract or they are at value for their contract. And I don't know if that's the scenario you want to be at when you're in a stable position. You can't be opportunistic with some of these deals and some of these contracts that you have. And so now that stability is kind of being positioned. What they're being positioned at is stable, but if anything, I would probably label it inflexible because of them not being able to really go out and do anything outside of what they have. And so that's why next season is a big test. To me, forget stability. Next season is a test. It's a proof of concept to see what this team is made of, what the potential of this team is. And that's why Bobby Webster's contract is only until 2026, 2027. Dan Tolzman is only till 2026, 27. I believe Darko also until 2026, 27. I know they extended or they opted into the final year of his deal as well. So there's a window here, a 2-year window for the Raptors to be like, hey, is what we're doing currently, does that make sense? Could it be fruitful in the NBA? Could it be a winning product, basically? I think both you and I can agree that there's potential for that. You mentioned 45 wins. I think that's a fair estimate. This is a team that, when they were decimated early on in the season, went 1-17 or 1-18 at one point.
And they lost 16 out of 17.
Right, 16 out of 7. So they went 1-16, and obviously the end of the year, they were going back and forth between what starters to rest, and that probably accounts for a couple of losses in the category. So really,
no, I mean, even before the losing 16 out of 17, they had the whole ethical tank thing going, right? Where they were in a bunch of games, and then all of a sudden, the last 5 minutes, we were like, we're
exactly,
not trying to win these games.
Like I can remember like that Nuggets game and the Lakers game. Like there were moments, remember Grady in Denver, how incredible he was in the first half, and then they just blew that game in the second half. No chance whatsoever. A lot of moments like that to start the season. And so you look at a team that won 30 games, but probably was like a 39-40 win team if they were fully healthy and BI eventually played, etc. I think there's a potential they can be better than that this season. especially.
Yeah.
I think they can be better, and they need to be, because it's a proof of concept for if ownership, if the Raptors, if Keith Pelly can keep buying into what this roster and what this front office can be.
Yeah, no, I think with any tanking team, you have to really understand the entire narrative of the season and understand what they're capable of when projecting for the season after. Because another example I'll turn to is Detroit, right? Statistically, we're all like, man, they went from 14 wins to 44, like
Right.
one of the greatest turnarounds in NBA history. But last year, that was not a 14-win team.
Right. Yeah.
They were so focused on the tank.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think when you assess the team moving forward, you kind of have to understand what was really going on to be able to make a proper estimate. And so, when Bill Simmons thinks that, there's no way Toronto can be in the top 6, I think there's a lot that you're missing out on in terms of what this team is actually capable of when they're healthy. Now, obviously, all of that is going to play into it, right?
Yeah.
Emmanuel quickly is going to have to play at least 60 games. RJ Barrett is going to have to, if he starts the season with the Raptors, is going to have to show that he can fit in that starting group. Brandon Ingram is going to have to be healthy. Scotty Barnes, as you said, to this point, the development he's shown on a rookie contract is good. Now we're getting into the big boy talk. You are the face of the franchise. You are on a big extension. Now we're going to have to see that next leap.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, like, I don't know, we can kind of go through the thought process here of the rest of the Eastern Conference. I think there's a clear, like, 3 or 4 teams, I would say, that are better when it comes to, Cleveland, Orlando, New York, Atlanta, maybe, I would say at this point is better.
Don't ride the fence with that. We know how you feel about Atlanta. You can,
you
can guess them.
Lock it in. Lock it in. Atlanta's a top 4 team. Yeah, I love the Hawks. I love what they're doing. So yeah, lock in the Hawks. I have no idea what the Pacers and Celtics look like next season, because it doesn't seem like they're missing obviously key pieces, and neither team now has a starting center. So that is in flux for me. I think the Raptors could be better than those teams. Even though they have the infrastructures of like playoff proven teams. So why not? Detroit is obviously going to be in the mix and be competitive, but I think for the most part, the Raptors thoroughly have themselves in that conversation to be, in my opinion, like at the very least a top 8 team and possibly a top 6 team in the Eastern Conference. Why not? I could see it.
Yeah. And, Milwaukee is doing the whole "we're trying, Jennifer" thing.
Right. Yeah.
Don't know.
Not sure. Not sure how you can win with Miles Turner as your second best player, but hey, Cook, try your best. We'll see what happens.
Honestly, I feel like if I were Giannis, if I got any word of what was about to happen, I would have just been like, guys, like,
let's
not, like, I think it's over. Like,
it's actually kind of reminds me of remember when the Blazers signed Jeremy Grant to a massive contract in order to persuade Dame to stay, and then 2 weeks later, a week later, Dame decided to say goodbye. This feels a lot like that, where obviously the Bucks are trying their best to keep Giannis happy and appeased, but when the dust settles after July 30th and it's August and it's the dead moments of the offseason, and he looks up and it's like, my third best player is Gary Trent Jr. And AJ Green, and all respect to those guys, good shooters, good players. Bobby Portis is maybe my third best player, whatever. I'm not necessarily sure that's a recipe for a team that's going to win a playoff series, let alone make the conference finals or the finals, So yeah, who knows? Maybe Alex Saradas is the next president of basketball operations for the Toronto Raptors,
I feel like the sell job is they're just going to put up like the meme of, just try to inspire Giannis with the whole, like, I asked my landlord to raise my rent. Like, let's think about what happens if you can carry this team, Giannis.
Right. That's the pitch. This could be another MVP season for you, Why not? Yeah, I guess that is the pitch. That's the pitch.
But Yeah, I mean, just to finish off on a Raptors note,
Yeah.
uh, I think, to conclude, Yak, solid extension. I think the last point I'll maybe make on him is, some people might look at it as like, hey, he's entering age 30 season. So this is pretty much age 30 to 34. I think he's the type of player where, he is pretty ground bound, as you mentioned. Darko wants him to dunk the ball. And so I don't think he's someone who's going to see like a huge decline over this period. I think you can expect good value and consistent value at what we've seen. And then he tacks on some more free throws, and you're golden.
Yeah, yeah, I'm fine. Shout out to Yak. I think he's a very, very important part of this team. This team absolutely fell off a cliff with him off the floor last season and pretty much every season before that. So, yeah, I see no problem with Yak being extended like this. And also, there's a little bit of flexibility towards the end of the contract, too, that will be feasible for the Raptors.
Awesome. If you want to carry on our discussion, head on over to the Locked On Raptors Discord. Link is in the description. Why don't you remind the people where they can find all your great work?
Yeah, come and talk to us at Raptors Republic. We do a lot of stuff on YouTube, obviously do tons of writing as well. We also are, obviously doing the podcasting, listen to Pull Up Trey and whatnot. I am part of the Athletic Podcast Network, so you can listen to the Athletic NBA Daily as well, talking about the NBA generally. And yeah, Vivek, appreciate you, man. Thank you for having me on.
Of course, thank you for joining me. Thank you, fans, for making Locked On Raptors your first listen today. For your second listen, find the Locked On NBA podcast where there is no offseason. Doug, Matt, and Hayes keep you up to date on contract negotiations, rumors, and everything you need to be the most informed NBA fan. Find Locked On NBA on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.